I met Stephen Murray at a resort spa in Hua Hin, 3 months after his world collapsed. He sat alone by the infinity pool, staring at the horizon with eyes that had seen too much. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted his drink, not from age, but from memories that wouldn't let him sleep. When he finally told me his story, I understood why some secrets destroy not just one person, but everyone they touch. This is that story, and I'm telling it because Stephen can't bear to speak these words again. Before we go further, subscribe right now if you've ever wondered how intelligent, successful people walk straight into traps they should have seen coming. Because Stephen and his wife Lisa thought they were too smart, too experienced, too worldly to be fooled. And you're about to discover why that confidence nearly cost them everything. Stephen Murray turned 53 in February of 2024, and by March, his marriage of 27 years had become a polite fiction. He and Lisa still shared a house in Connecticut, still attended the same dinner parties, still smiled for family photos. But somewhere between raising 2 kids and building successful careers, him in commercial real estate, her in marketing, they'd stopped being lovers and become roommates, who occasionally argued about the thermostat. The idea came to them separately, then converged one night over expensive wine. They'd both read the articles, seen the documentaries about couples who'd rekindled dying marriages through unconventional means. Open relationships, ethical non-monogamy, swinging. Words that felt dangerous and exciting in equal measure. They weren't looking to end their marriage. They were looking to save it. What if we tried something different? Lisa had asked, her voice careful, testing, just to see if we can feel alive again. Stephen had nodded, relief flooding through him that he hadn't been the one to suggest it first. They both felt it, that slow death of passion, the comfortable numbness that came from knowing someone too well. They didn't want a divorce. They wanted to remember why they'd fallen in love in the first place. Thailand seemed perfect. Far enough from Connecticut that they'd never run into anyone they knew. Exotic enough to feel like an adventure. And Phuket, they'd read, had a thriving community of expatriates and tourists who understood discretion. They booked a villa for 3 weeks in November, told their grown children they were taking a second honeymoon, and tried not to think too hard about what they were planning. The flight to Bangkok, then the connection to Phuket, gave them 22 hours to reconsider. They didn't. They held hands during takeoff, squeezed tight during turbulence, and whispered to each other about boundaries and rules. They'd only play together, never separately. They'd communicate constantly. They'd stop the moment either felt uncomfortable. They had it all planned out, all controlled, all safe. The villa exceeded their expectations, modern luxury wrapped in tropical paradise. Infinity pool, ocean view, complete privacy. They unpacked, made love that first night with nervous energy, and woke the next morning to possibilities that felt infinite. For the first 3 days, they explored Phuket like normal tourists. Temples and beaches, street food and sunset cruises. They were working up their courage, both knowing it but not saying it. On the 4th night, they found velvet dreams. Or rather, velvet dreams found them. They'd been having drinks at a rooftop bar when another couple struck up conversation. Americans, around their age, friendly in that way that felt like an invitation to something more. Mark and Jennifer, from California, 3rd time in Thailand, and would Stephen and Lisa like to join them for a more interesting evening? Velvet Dreams occupied a renovated mansion in a quiet part of Patong. From the outside, it looked like any other upscale residence. Inside, it was something else entirely. Dim lighting, plush furniture, private rooms, and the kind of atmosphere that made normal inhibitions feel like unnecessary baggage. A membership club, Mark explained. Very selective, very safe, very discreet. Lisa's hand found Stephen's, squeezed 3 times. Their signal. Are you sure? Yes. Absolutely. Maybe. The club manager greeted them personally. A Thai woman in her 30s, elegant and professional, who introduced herself simply as Orapin. She made everything feel normal, natural, even sophisticated. She explained the rules, the safe words, the screening process for members. She assured them of complete privacy. No photos, no recordings, no real names required. She made them feel like they were joining an exclusive society of enlightened adults who'd evolved beyond outdated social conventions. That night changed everything. Stephen and Lisa found themselves in a world where touch meant nothing and everything simultaneously. Where strangers became intimate without pretense, where pleasure was transaction without currency. They stayed for 4 hours, engaged with 2 other couples, and drove back to their villa in silence that felt like shared triumph. They'd done it. They'd crossed the threshold. They'd felt alive. They returned to Velvet Dreams 3 nights later, and 4 nights after that. Each visit, Orapin greeted them like old friends, introduced them to new people, made sure they felt comfortable. The club became their secret world, and Orapin became their guide through it. She was always there, always attentive, always making sure they had exactly what they needed. It was during their 5th visit that Orapin suggested something different. A more intimate gathering at a private villa, just 3 couples, herself included. More personal, more exclusive. A chance to really connect with people who shared their journey. Stephen and Lisa agreed. Why wouldn't they? Orapin had become their friend, their confidant in this strange new world. They trusted her. The private villa sat in the hills above Hua Hin, about 3 hours from Phuket. Orapin explained she had business interests there, property investments, and this particular villa was her personal retreat. More secluded, more luxurious, more perfect for what she called authentic experiences. They made the drive on a Thursday afternoon, their rental car climbing into green hills that smelled like rain and flowers. Lisa seemed nervous, chattering more than usual. Stephen felt it too. This was different from the club, more deliberate, more exposed. But they'd come this far. They weren't going to turn back now. The villa was spectacular. Modern architecture hidden in jungle vegetation, infinity pool overlooking mountain valleys, bedrooms that opened onto private terraces. Orapin welcomed them with champagne and smiles, introduced them to the other guests. 2 couples, both Western, both friendly. Mark and Jennifer from California were there, the couple who'd first brought them to Velvet Dreams. The other pair introduced themselves as David and Sarah, British, living in Bangkok. Everything felt perfect. Too perfect, Stephen would realize later. The champagne that flowed too freely. The way conversation steered toward intimate topics with practiced ease. The casual suggestions that escalated so naturally. The way boundaries dissolved without anyone seeming to push them. Stop! Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will shatter everything Stephen and Lisa thought they understood about trust, desire, and the price of adventure. Write in the comments. Have you spotted the red flags yet? Because Stephen hadn't, and that blindness was about to cost him everything. The evening progressed like a carefully choreographed dance. Dinner on the terrace, sunset painting the mountains gold and crimson, wine that tasted expensive and went down too easily. Orapin was the perfect hostess, ensuring glasses stayed full, conversations stayed engaging, inhibitions stayed low. The other couples shared stories of their adventures, their discoveries, their evolution. It all felt so sophisticated, so enlightened, so far from the mundane constraints of their Connecticut life. After dinner, the group migrated to the living room. Someone put on music, low and sensual. Someone else suggested the hot tub. The transition happened so smoothly that Stephen couldn't later identify the exact moment when casual evening became something else entirely. He remembered Lisa's hand in his, remembered her nervous laugh, remembered thinking this was what they came here for. What he didn't remember clearly was when exactly he lost track of Lisa. One moment she was beside him, the next she was across the room with David and Sarah. One moment he was in control, the next Orapin was very close, her perfume overwhelming, her suggestions whispered like secrets. The boundaries he and Lisa had set, only together, always together, somehow didn't seem to matter anymore. The night blurred at its edges. Stephen would later try to reconstruct the sequence, the timeline, the decisions. But champagne and desire and permission all conspired to make memory unreliable. He knew he went upstairs with Orapin at some point. He knew Lisa went somewhere with someone else. He knew that the rules they'd established dissolved like sugar in warm water. Morning came with savage brightness. Stephen woke in an unfamiliar bed, head pounding, mouth dry as sand. Orapin was gone. Lisa was gone. For a moment, panic clawed at his throat before he heard voices downstairs. Normal, cheerful breakfast conversation. He found his clothes scattered across the floor, dressed with shaking hands, and went to find his wife. Lisa sat on the terrace, coffee cup trembling slightly in her hands. Her eyes met his across the breakfast table, and in them, he saw his own confusion reflected back. What had they done? What had happened? The other couples seemed perfectly fine, laughing over mimosas and tropical fruit. Only Lisa and Stephen exchanged glances that spoke of shared regret. They made excuses to leave early. Orapin protested graciously but didn't push. She hugged them both goodbye, promised to see them back at Velvet Dreams, and waved as they drove away. In the car, neither spoke for the first hour. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. That wasn't what I wanted. Me neither. I don't remember everything. Me neither. They didn't discuss details. They couldn't. Something about the previous night felt wrong in daylight, shameful, violated. They'd crossed lines they'd agreed not to cross, but the crossing felt involuntary, manipulated. They drove back to Phuket and spent the rest of the day in their villa, not touching, not talking, just trying to process what had happened. That evening, Orapin called Lisa's phone, friendly, casual, checking in. Did they have a good drive back? Were they feeling all right? Would they like to come by the club tomorrow? Lisa said they needed some time. They'd been going too hard. Maybe they'd take a few days off. Orapin understood completely. Rest well. Call when ready. But Orapin called again the next day, and the day after. Always friendly, never pushy, but persistent. Always asking when they'd come back, when they'd like to schedule another private gathering, when they'd like to meet her for drinks. Stephen started feeling uncomfortable with the attention. Lisa stopped answering her phone. On the 6th day after Hua Hin, an email arrived in both their inboxes simultaneously. The subject line was simple: "Beautiful memories from the hills." Stephen opened it first. What he saw made his stomach drop to his feet. Photos, video thumbnails, timestamps. Him with Orapin, Lisa with David, Lisa with Sarah and Jennifer, Stephen with people he barely remembered from that blurred night. Intimate moments captured from angles that suggested hidden cameras throughout the villa. Every room, every corner, every private moment recorded in high definition. The message was brief. "These moments are so beautiful, I'd hate for them to become public. Let's discuss how to keep them private. $100,000 seems reasonable for such valuable privacy. Contact me within 48 hours. Otherwise, these go to your families, your employers, your social media contacts. I have all the information I need." Lisa found Stephen on their villa's balcony, laptop open, face ash white. She looked at the screen, then grabbed his shoulder for support as her legs weakened. They'd been so careful about anonymity at the club. They'd never given real names. But somewhere along the way, Orapin had gotten everything. Their full names, their home address, their children's Facebook profiles, Stephen's business website, Lisa's LinkedIn. Everything. "Oh God," Lisa whispered. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." The phone rang. Unknown number. Stephen answered, hands shaking. Orapin's voice, still friendly, still warm, but now with steel underneath. Did they receive her email? Good. She hoped they understood this was just business, nothing personal. They seemed like nice people. She'd hate to ruin their lives. But $100,000 was actually quite reasonable, given what was at stake. Their children would be devastated to see those videos. Stephen's business partners would have questions. Lisa's colleagues would never look at her the same way. "You drugged us," Stephen said, voice cracking. "We didn't consent to being filmed. This is illegal." Orapin laughed, genuinely amused. "You're in Thailand, Stephen, and you consented to everything by signing the membership agreement at Velvet Dreams. Did you read the fine print? No, most people don't. You agreed to photography and recording for security purposes. You agreed to Thai law jurisdiction. And even if you went to police, which you won't, what exactly would you tell them? That you came to Thailand to have sex with strangers and now you're upset someone recorded it. We'll fight this, Lisa said, grabbing the phone. We'll go to the authorities. You'll pay. Orapin interrupted, voice flat now. Or in 72 hours, everyone you know will receive these files. Your children will see their parents in ways children should never see. Your community will know exactly what you did on your tropical vacation. Your reputations will be destroyed. Your marriage will end. Your careers will implode. All for $100,000. That's less than 1 year of Stephen's income, I believe. A bargain, really. She hung up. Stephen and Lisa sat in silence as the sun set over the Andaman Sea. The paradise they'd come to rediscover their marriage had become a nightmare prison. They had 9 days left on their villa rental. They had 72 hours to decide. They had $100,000 they hadn't planned to spend. We could just not pay, Lisa said weakly. We could call her bluff. It's not a bluff, Stephen replied. You saw those videos. She has everything, our entire lives in high-definition shame. We could go to the police and tell them what? That we participated in sex parties and someone recorded us? In a country where we're tourists and she's a citizen with connections? She planned this perfectly, Lisa. We walked right into it. Pause this video and subscribe immediately. The next revelation will make your blood run cold, and you'll want to share this warning with everyone you know. Comment below. What would you do in this situation? Because Stephen and Lisa's choice will determine whether they survive this or lose everything. They didn't sleep that night. They researched Thai law, extortion cases, hidden camera statutes. They found stories of other foreigners caught in similar traps, romance scams, blackmail schemes, honey traps. Thailand, they discovered too late, had entire networks of people who targeted tourists for exactly these kinds of cons. Sex tourism worked both ways. Westerners came seeking exotic adventures, and criminals offered exactly that, with hidden cameras and extortion demands attached. The next morning, another email. More photos, more videos, more timestamps. These were worse. Close-ups, explicit angles, moments Stephen didn't remember happening. How drunk had they been? How drugged? The champagne that tasted too good. The way inhibitions had dissolved so completely. The gaps in memory. Thought you might need motivation, the email read. 60 hours remaining. Wire transfer instructions attached. Don't make me send these to your daughter Emily. She's so proud of her parents, according to her Instagram posts. Would be ashamed to shatter that admiration. Lisa started crying then. Really crying. The kind of sobbing that comes from complete helplessness. Their daughter Emily was 24, engaged, planning a wedding. Their son Michael was 21, finishing college. What would this do to them? How could they explain that their parents had flown to Thailand for swinger parties? Stephen called the number from Orapin's email. She answered immediately, voice professional, like she was closing a real estate deal rather than destroying lives. I want to meet with you, Stephen said. Face to face. Negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. $100,000. 48 hours now. What guarantee do we have you'll delete the files? You don't. But what choice do you have? Pay, and maybe I delete them. Don't pay, and I definitely send them everywhere. Simple economics, Stephen. You're a businessman. You understand leverage. Let me see you in person. One conversation. That's all I ask. Orapin was quiet for a moment. Then, Velvet Dreams, tonight at 9. Come alone. No Lisa. And no heroics, Stephen. I have friends. Lots of friends. This isn't a movie. This is Thailand. Stephen went alone, telling Lisa to stay at the villa with doors locked. The club looked different now. Sinister, where it had seemed sophisticated. Predatory, where it had seemed permissive. Orapin waited in a private room, perfectly composed, perfectly in control. You want to know if I'm alone in this, she said before Stephen could speak. You want to know if Mark and Jennifer and David and Sarah are real or part of the scheme. You want to know how deep this goes. Are they real? Define real. They're people. They exist. Whether they knew they were helping me or were victims themselves, does it matter? You're still trapped. The videos still exist. Your life still hangs by the thread of my goodwill. Why us? Why target us specifically? Orapin smiled, something almost pitying in her expression. You targeted yourselves, Stephen. You came to Thailand looking for adventure, for permission to break rules, for exotic experiences. You posted about it on travel forums. You asked questions in online communities. You made yourselves visible to people like me. We didn't choose you. You chose yourself. How many others? Enough that I own a villa in Hua Hin, a condo in Bangkok, and property in Chiang Mai. Business is good when guilt-ridden Americans and Europeans want to keep secrets from their families. You're not special, Stephen. You're just this month's deposit. The room spun slightly. Stephen gripped the chair armrest. What if I can't get the money? What if I don't have that much liquid? You have it. I've seen your tax returns, your bank statements. You pulled out home equity last year for your daughter's college. You have retirement accounts, investment portfolios. You can get $100,000. The question isn't can you? The question is, will you? Stephen's phone buzzed. A message from Lisa. Please just pay her. I can't take this anymore. 36 hours. Orapin said, standing. After that, I start sending files. Your daughter first. She should know what her parents really are before she gets married. Don't you think? Stephen drove back to the villa in a daze. Lisa met him at the door, desperate for answers he didn't have. They sat up all night, doing calculations, accessing accounts, preparing wire transfers. $100,000 to preserve a life that already felt destroyed. $100,000 to prevent their children from seeing them at their worst. $100,000 for the privilege of being able to go home with shame instead of complete annihilation. But sometime around 4 in the morning, exhausted and broken, Stephen had a different thought. He pulled up his laptop and started searching. Velvet Dreams Phuket scam. Thailand swinger blackmail. Sex tourist extortion, Thailand. The results were sparse, but illuminating. A few forum posts from throwaway accounts. A couple of news articles about similar schemes. And buried deep in a Reddit thread from 8 months ago, a detailed account of the exact same trap. Different victims, same villa, same Orapin, same demand for $100,000. And at the bottom of that thread, a comment from someone claiming to have information. A username, Thai Scam Hunter. A message. If you're reading this because you're a victim, contact me. There are more of you than you think. Stephen sent a message through Reddit, not expecting a response. But 30 minutes later, his phone pinged, an encrypted messaging app invitation. He downloaded it, opened the chat, and found himself in a group conversation with 7 other people. 7 other victims. 7 other couples who'd walked into Orapin's trap. Some had paid, some hadn't. All of them were living with the consequences. The group coordinator called himself James, not his real name, he admitted, but his real story.
British, caught in the same scam 18 months ago. Paid the 100,000. Videos were deleted. Then, 6 months later, Orapin had demanded more money. And more after that. Because once you paid, you confirmed you'd pay again. The videos never disappear, James wrote. She keeps them as insurance. She'll milk you for years. I've paid her £300,000 total. My marriage ended anyway. My business partner found out. My kids won't speak to me. The payments never stop. Stephen felt something crack open inside his chest. Not just despair now, but rage. Pure, clarifying rage. What if we go to the police together? All of us. We tried that, another victim responded. Thai police don't care. Some are probably on her payroll. Western police can't do anything because the crime happened in Thailand. We're on our own. Then what do? Silence in the chat. Then James. We expose her.
All of us, together, publicly. We destroy her business, her reputation, her ability to do this to anyone else. We accept that our secrets become public, but we control the narrative. We become whistleblowers instead of victims. We become warnings instead of cautionary tales. "You're insane," Stephen typed. "That would destroy us too." "We're already destroyed," James wrote back. "She's already destroyed us." The question is whether we go down quietly and alone, or loudly and together. Subscribe to this channel before we continue, because what Stephen decides in the next few hours will determine not just his fate, but the fate of dozens of other victims you haven't met yet. Your comment might save someone's life. Write what warning signs you've noticed that others might miss. Lisa found Stephen at dawn, still at his laptop, reading victim stories that mirrored their own with terrifying precision. He explained what he'd discovered: the network of victims, James's plan, the choice between submission or exposure. "I can't do it," Lisa said immediately. "I can't let Emily and Michael see those videos. I can't face our friends, our family, our community. I'd rather pay every month for the rest of my life than have our children know." "We're not the only ones," Stephen said quietly. "There are dozens of us, maybe hundreds. Every couple she's trapped, every person she's blackmailed. As long as we stay silent, she keeps winning. She keeps doing this. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to our family, our children, our lives. Let someone else be the hero." Stephen looked at his wife, 27 years of marriage, 2 children together, a life built on shared choices. And he realized with sudden clarity that this was the moment that would define the rest of their days. Not the decision to come to Thailand, not the decision to try swinging. This decision, right here, right now. Submit or fight. Hide or expose. Survive quietly or resist loudly. He called James through the encrypted app. "If we do this, if we expose her publicly, what exactly does that look like?" "We coordinate our stories, contact international media, provide evidence of the scam, explain the pattern. We accept that our private moments become public, but we frame them as part of a criminal enterprise, not personal shame. We become advocates against sex tourism blackmail. We turn our humiliation into activism." And Orapin? Her business ends. Velvet Dreams closes. Her victims stop paying. She might face charges, though probably not conviction. But she loses her power, her income, her ability to do this anymore. And what do we lose? Everything you're already losing. Your privacy, your reputation, your comfortable anonymity. But you gain something too. Your agency, your voice, your ability to stop being a victim. Stephen looked at Lisa, saw the terror in her eyes, and made the hardest decision of his life. "I'm doing it. I'm not spending the rest of my life paying blackmail to a criminal." Lisa's face crumpled. "You'll destroy us. You'll destroy our family." "She already did that. I'm just choosing how we respond." The next 18 hours were chaos. Stephen coordinated with James and the other victims. They compiled evidence, synchronized their stories, prepared statements. A journalist from an international news organization who specialized in sex trafficking and tourist scams agreed to break the story. Stephen wrote a letter to his children, explaining everything before they heard it from someone else. At 8:47 p.m., 17 minutes before Orapin's deadline, Stephen sent her an email. "I'm not paying. And neither are any of your other victims. We're going public tomorrow. Your business is finished." His phone rang immediately. Orapin, voice no longer friendly, no longer warm. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. I will destroy you. Those videos will go everywhere. Your children will hate you. Your business will collapse. You'll lose everything." "I've already lost everything," Stephen said, voice steady now. "The only question is whether I lose it while cowering or while fighting back." "You think you're a hero? You think exposing yourself makes you brave? You're just another stupid tourist who came to Thailand to play and got played instead. I will end you. Maybe, but I'll end you first." She hung up. Stephen waited, phone in hand, for the videos to start flooding inboxes. They didn't come. The deadline passed. Midnight came and went. No videos. No messages. Silence. The next morning, the international news story broke. International blackmail ring targets Western couples at Thai swingers clubs. Stephen and Lisa were identified by first names only, but their story was central. So were stories from James, from the other victims, from people who'd been too terrified to come forward until now.
The article detailed the scheme, the pattern, the villa in Hua Hin, the Velvet Dreams Club, Orapin's network. Within hours, Thai authorities raided Velvet Dreams. Orapin was arrested, though she'd likely face minimal charges in Thailand's complex justice system. But her business was destroyed. Her reputation was public. Her victims stopped paying. Some videos did surface online, but buried in the context of a criminal investigation, they became evidence of crime rather than sources of shame. Stephen and Lisa flew back to Connecticut 3 days later. The flight home was nothing like the flight out. They didn't hold hands. They barely spoke. Their marriage was over, not from the scandal, but from the fundamental breach of trust that came with Stephen's decision to go public without Lisa's consent. She'd begged him not to. He'd done it anyway. Emily and Michael read their father's letter before the news broke. Their responses were complicated. Horror at what their parents had done, pride at their father's stand against blackmail, confusion about how to reconcile these two conflicting realities. The wedding went ahead, but the family dynamics had shifted permanently. Stephen's business partners asked him to step back from client-facing roles. Lisa took leave from her job. Their social circle contracted to those who could move past judgment. Divorce papers were filed 4 months after returning from Thailand. 27 years of marriage ended in a conference room with lawyers and mediators. I met Stephen at that spa in Hua Hin, 9 months after his world exploded. He'd come back to Thailand, surprisingly, to work with an organization helping other scam victims. Turning his trauma into purpose, he said, making meaning from catastrophe. He'd given up everything to fight back against Orapin's scheme, and in some ways, the fight had saved him, even as it destroyed his old life. "Do I regret going public?" he asked himself aloud, staring at the mountains where the nightmare villa still stood, now empty and for sale. Every day, and
Never. I regret that my children saw those videos. I regret that my marriage ended. I regret that I can't walk through my hometown without seeing judgment in people's eyes. But I don't regret stopping her. I don't regret saving others from the same trap. Sometimes the right choice is still the devastating choice. Lisa didn't speak to him anymore. His relationship with his children was healing, slowly, painfully. His business survived but would never fully recover. He lived now in a smaller house, a smaller life, a smaller version of himself. But he slept at night, something he couldn't do during those 72 hours of terror in Phuket. The broader lesson, Stephen told me, wasn't about swinging or sex tourism, or even blackmail specifically. It was about how criminals exploit shame, how they weaponize our secrets, our vulnerabilities, our desperation to maintain social approval. How they count on our silence, because silence protects their business model. We made ourselves targets, he said. Lisa and I went to Thailand, looking for permission to break our own rules. And criminals offered us exactly that, with cameras rolling. We weren't victims of bad luck. We were victims of our own denial that actions have consequences, that privacy isn't guaranteed, that exotic adventures sometimes hide predatory schemes. The organization Stephen now works with has helped dozens of similar victims come forward. Orapin was never convicted of serious crimes in Thailand, but her business network collapsed. Velvet Dreams is closed. The villa in Hua Hin sits abandoned. Other victims who paid her money banded together for civil suits that may never succeed, but at least represent resistance instead of submission. James, the British victim who started the exposure movement, rebuilt his life in Portugal, far from everyone who knew his old story. Some victims chose to keep paying Orapin, even after the exposure, terrified of what she might still release. Some marriages survived the scandal. Most didn't. Would I do it all differently if I could go back? Stephen asked, as the sun set over Hua Hin, painting the sky the same colors it had painted that terrible night 9 months ago. I'd never have come to Thailand. I'd never have walked into Velvet Dreams. I'd have worked on my marriage through therapy instead of through sexual experimentation. But I can't go back. None of us can. We can only decide what we do with the wreckage. He turned to me then, eyes clear despite everything. If you tell this story, tell people that adventures sometimes cost more than the price of admission. Tell them that privacy is fragile in the digital age. Tell them that criminals rely on shame keeping victims silent. Tell them that fighting back might destroy your old life, but submission destroys your soul. Tell them to be careful, be aware, and be ready to accept consequences for choices that seem exciting in the moment. I promised him I would. This is me keeping that promise. The final irony, Stephen told me, was that he and Lisa had come to Thailand to save their marriage by breaking conventional rules. Instead, they learned that some conventions exist for good reasons, that boundaries protect us, that privacy matters, that consequences are real, that paradise can hide predators, that the price of excitement might be everything you value. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and if you've experienced something similar. Not necessarily this specific scam, but any situation where the promise of excitement hid a darker reality. Your story might help someone else avoid the same trap. 3 weeks after our conversation, Stephen sent me a message. The organization he worked with had helped shut down 2 more similar operations in Bangkok and Chiang Mai. Dozens more victims had come forward, some from incidents years old. The pattern was always the same: target Western couples seeking sexual adventure, provided with cameras rolling, demand money for silence, repeat until the victims had nothing left to give. "We're winning," his message said. Slowly, painfully, but we're winning. Every person who speaks up makes it harder for the next criminal to run the same scheme. Every victim who refuses to pay weakens the business model. Every story like yours that goes public creates awareness that protects potential targets. I asked him if he'd found peace. His reply, "I found purpose." Maybe that's better than peace. Peace was what I had in Connecticut before Thailand, and look where that led. Purpose at least points towards something worth building. Lisa remarried 18 months after the divorce. Someone from before Thailand, before Phuket, before Velvet Dreams. Someone who never knew about the videos, or the blackmail, or the international scandal. She got her privacy back by choosing someone who never looked for her story online. Stephen said he was happy for her, and I believed him. Emily and Michael both speak to their father now, though the easy closeness of before is gone, replaced by something more complex. They're proud of his advocacy work, they've said, even if they wish he'd chosen a different path to get there. Michael wrote a college paper about his father's case, examining the ethics of whistleblowing, when whistleblowing exposes not just criminals but victims too. He got an A. The villa in Hua Hin sold eventually. A Russian tech millionaire bought it, unaware of its history. Orapin disappeared after her arrest, rumored to be in Cambodia or Laos, running similar schemes under different names. Some of her victims still receive occasional emails demanding money, but fewer now than before. The threat diminishes with each passing month, each new story that emerges, each victim who refuses to pay. Stephen Murray turns 55 this year. He lives in a condo in Portland now, works remotely for the anti-scam organization, dates occasionally but nothing serious. His Connecticut life is completely gone. The house sold, the business partnerships dissolved, the social networks abandoned. He built a new life from pieces, smaller but honest, traumatized but authentic. "I tell people I'm a survivor of blackmail," he said during our last conversation. "Not a survivor of sexual assault or violence, but of weaponized shame. And I survived by refusing to let shame control me. That's the only victory available to people in my situation. Choosing transparency over secrecy, action over paralysis, resistance over submission." He paused, looking out at the ocean, the same ocean that had witnessed his unraveling and his reconstruction. "The trap worked because Lisa and I thought we could have adventure without consequence, pleasure without risk, exploration without exposure. We thought we were sophisticated enough to navigate complex situations. We were wrong. Humiliatingly, publicly, devastatingly wrong. But being wrong doesn't mean being silent. It means learning, warning others, and trying to prevent the next couple from making the same mistakes." That's Stephen Murray's story. A cautionary tale about desire and deception, about criminals who weaponize intimacy, about the price of excitement in an age of hidden cameras and digital permanence. It's not a comfortable story. It's not a story with clear heroes and villains. It's a story about complicated choices, competing values, and the permanent consequences of temporary decisions. If you're planning exotic adventures, seeking unconventional experiences, or exploring boundaries in unfamiliar places, remember Stephen and Lisa. Remember that criminals count on your shame, your secrecy, your desperation to maintain respectability. Remember that consent to intimacy isn't consent to recording. Remember that paradise can hide predation. Remember that the most sophisticated scams target our vulnerabilities, not our wallets. And if you find yourself trapped in something similar, remember you have choices beyond submission. They're hard choices, devastating choices, choices that might destroy the life you knew. But submission is a slow death, while resistance, however costly, returns agency to people who criminals tried to reduce to victims. Stephen's final words to me: I hope no one ever needs this story, but if they do, I hope it helps them understand they're not alone, they're not powerless, and fighting back, however terrifying, is always better than living under the thumb of someone who profits from your fear. That's why I told this story. Not to shame Stephen and Lisa for their choices, but to illuminate the predatory systems that target people seeking connection, adventure, and excitement. Not to judge couples who explore unconventional relationships, but to warn them that criminals create perfect-seeming opportunities specifically to trap the unwary. The swinger's trap isn't really about swinging. It's about exploitation, about weaponized intimacy, about criminals who build sophisticated operations around human vulnerability. Stephen and Lisa walked into it because they were seeking something real. Rekindled passion, authentic connection, liberation from conventional constraints. What they found instead was a machine designed to extract money from shame. Your choices are your own. Your adventures are yours to choose. But go forward with eyes open, with awareness that perfect opportunities sometimes hide perfect traps, with understanding that the price of silence is always higher than the price of truth. Stephen paid everything to learn that lesson. Perhaps his loss can be someone else's warning. Perhaps his story can prevent the next couple from making that drive to a villa in the hills, from drinking champagne that tastes too good, from waking to a reality they never imagined. That's the purpose of difficult stories. Not comfort, but clarity. Not judgment, but warning. Not shame, but illumination. Remember Stephen Murray. Remember Oripin. Remember that paradise and predation can wear the same face. And remember that when criminals weaponize shame, speaking truth, however costly, remains the only real path to freedom. This has been the story of the swinger's trap. May it serve as warning, as education, as armament against those who profit from our secrets and our silence. I met Stephen Murray at a resort spa in Hua Hin 3 months